Good morning. I'm going to run through a timeline of events relating to an officer-involved shooting that occurred last night on Minnesota Avenue in the city of Buffalo. Last night at approximately 10:26 p.m., there was a call by an off-site male about a mental health crisis that was going on at that address. This was originally dispatched as a priority 3 call. So our priorities, number 1 is the highest of calls, and it drops down all the way to 7 or 8, depending on the call type. At 10:38 or 22:38 hours, there was a second call about this situation. At 10:43 that night, AMR is on scene. They update the call through their dispatch, ultimately to Buffalo Police Dispatch, that a 50-year-old man is threatening to kill the AMR crew as well as the neighbor. At 22:52 or 10:52, AMR then reports that the male now has 3 people at knife point, which triggers a immediate dispatch of police cars. 1 minute later, the dispatch has the first patrol car going to the scene. At 22:55, the first cars are reported on scene. 2 minutes after that, officers request the air being held, which means that they're looking for a reduction in radio traffic during these types of calls. 1 minute after that, at 22:58, there is a call for shots fired. At this point, this is very, very early in the investigation, and what we do know is the subject, which was a 58-year-old male, was shot 2 times by officers and ultimately was declared dead at ECMC during surgery at 11:52 last night. In this very, very brief timeline that we've had to look at and what we've been able to uncover, or what we know right now, there is a very significant level of threat that escalated against the officers in a very short period of time. In those few seconds that we're looking at, there is a deployment of a taser, which multiple times the taser was deployed. Verbal commands were issued, and then one officer fires his service weapon 2 times, ultimately striking the subject in his torso, right? So at this time, I will answer any questions that I possibly can. I would like to caution you, there is an open investigation by not only the Buffalo Police Homicide Unit, but the Attorney General, since this was an officer-involved case, that triggers an executive order, which the Attorney General's office then mirrors the Buffalo Police Homicide investigation, and they ultimately retain jurisdiction in these cases. So 58-year-old male.
How soon do you expect
Very good question. So the timeline moving forward will be, we will be reaching out to the next of kin, which we have not had success at this point. Once the body cam is compiled, we will offer that family the opportunity to visit, to watch that, the whole situation on play, and then we will release that to the public. So in a perfect scenario, sometime middle to end of next week, but we will give the family some latitude with the timeline.
He was tased once?
So there was multiple taser deployments. That's what I will say at this point. I don't know if they were effective from the cameras that I see, but there is multiple taser deployments.
Is that why it raises the level of firearm?
So this is a very, very fast situation. The taser ultimately is not effective, and then yeah, a firearm is used.
So where did this happen? Like outside, inside, and did he threaten the police officers, or was it the hostages, or what happened?
Sure. That's a good question. Thank you. Ultimately, it happens inside the residence, and the subject does have 2 knives. And you know, once the body cam is released, that'll go into it a little bit more and why that force was used.
So the 3 people were the ambulance crew and the neighbor, or who was the 3 people?
So that part's still being investigated. That was reported to us by a third party, so we are looking through that.
Do you know how many officers were actually there? I know you said 1 to 20.
Yeah, so there is multiple officers, I would say more than 5. I can get you that answer, but there is multiple officers there. When you ask that question and you say, okay, one officer shot, one officer deployed his taser, why is that, right? You're in a tight confines inside a house in the city of Buffalo, essentially in a vestibule, where there is not a lot of room for a lot of people to work.
The department has a behavioral health team. As we know, it operates Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Sure.
So obviously, this was out of their hours. Has there been any discussions ever with Endeavor Health to try to expand that program, realizing the city's financial constraints? Because even though they say that they have a 35% diversion rate, according to your website here, the question is, in these overnight situations or late-at-night situations, a weekend situation, it doesn't seem like anybody from that team can be there to try to de-escalate or try to deal with the individual who may have a mental health situation.
Sure. Very valid question. I would go back to the timeline, though, where medical health professionals are on scene before the police are, right, which is AMR, and they have some of the same training, or they are not police, right? So, you know, when you have these types of calls with mental health related with weapons, that is going to trigger a armed response, which is going to be the police. Now, the discussion about improving our BHT, our times, and everything else, I can tell you that we have been in contact with the Erie County Office of Mental Health and Central Police Services. We are looking at expanding and kind of pivoting a little bit more. I think it's prematurely to talk, but for the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've been in discussion, and we're looking to actually put something else into place very soon.
Did the AMR team feel that they were being indeed threatened with bodily harm by this individual? Are you able to say? I mean, being paramedics, I don't know if they'd be comfortable, even though they have to respond to some of these situations.
Sure. So I don't want to speak for AMR, but I will tell you what was reported. They will have to speak to homicide in an actual formal setting in the AG's office, so that will come out then.
Was anyone else
police
injured?
officers have a protocol for dealing with mental health situations where weapons are involved? I understand that there were some hostages and the police were threatened, but is there a way to disarm someone without causing?
Well, you know, that's another very valid question, but when we're talking about this situation specifically, from the time that the officers are on scene and the time that the force is used, it happens very quickly, and you can see just in the call log and the times, right? This call was not a top priority call. As it developed, it got higher, and the threat level changed significantly. Yes, there is policies in place. Every situation that is a critical incident always takes a look. Hey, is there some failures in our policy? Can we strengthen our policy? Should we look at other equipment? Right. The taser is a very, very useful tool. It's saved and de-escalated a lot of things. Did not work in this situation, and maybe it didn't work because of the contact. Maybe it didn't work because of the person. I don't know, but it was deployed prior to shooting.
The person who was killed, is that his residence where this happened?
Yes.
And was anyone else injured?
No.
Can you say what he was threatening to do to the police or the AMR?
So I think once we release the body cam, that's going to be very clear. I don't want to get ahead of that, and you know, I don't think it's fair for the people involved to include the families for me to just lay everything out before they get to see it.
Are you able to say if police had been there before and if there was a history with this individual at this point?
So again, another very valid question. We believe that he has not been in the area for very long, and I say very long, less than a year. When we do our initial scan on that call or that address, you know, the preliminary reports are that there is 17 ambulance calls there in a year and a half. Now, obviously, all of those wouldn't be going to him. However, we have not been able to see if they are related to him or not. But we did do the initial to look on the address. Criminally, we have had no interaction with him.
It's an apartment building?
It's a house that has multi-units in it.
And so the first call is at 10:26, you said?
Yes, ma'am.
And that was, you said it was like a low-level call, like what was the call?
It was just a mental health crisis. So,
And who called, was that the neighbor who called?
an off-site caller.
Okay. And is that normal for it not to be handled by the police right away, or?
Sure. When you start looking at the priority levels, that specifically comes into play. Priority 1 and priority 2 calls, the in-progress calls, the higher level threat calls, will drop all of these other types of calls lower as they come in, right? So, but once it escalated to there possibly a crime in progress or safety concerns, you can see the very fast response.
And when were the knives, like, spotted, or at what point, and what kind of knives? Can you describe them?
So, they're spotted when the police officers see him. But again.
So before AMR? AMR didn't see them?
So, yeah, obviously AMR saw them because they called. But I'm talking about with respect to the police. Once they actually make contact with him, it's immediately apparent that he has knives.
Like what, like kitchen knife?
Knives,
Switchblade, do we know, or
just knives.
just knives? Okay.
How many knives were you able to share?
2.
And do you know how long after he was transferred to ECNC, how long was it afterward? Was he dead?
So in this case, we had the good fortune of AMR being on scene before, right? Sometimes that doesn't happen. And he is initially provided with medical treatment by the officers immediately on scene. AMR comes up to the house, they end up transporting him, and then he is immediately taken into surgery where ultimately he dies. So it's about 52 minutes, give or take, approximately.
How many officers fired, how many officers fired and how many shots fired?
One officer, two shots.
I understand there aren't too many details you can reveal into a specific case, but would you be able to tell us how he was holding these individuals hostage? I know by knife point, but.
Not at this point.
When do you anticipate being able to release the body cam?
So this is going to be, again, the family is kind of the friction point with the notification and the ability, if they are from out of town, them to come here and/or if they want to come here, right? In a very perfect scenario, that would be middle of next week approximately. But I got to caution, if they're asking to wait till the end of next week, we will do that, right? We will be prepared to go before then, and then we will provide that information, but they're going to have a little bit of, to say in that matter.
Is every officer trained in mental health calls, when they get, put through the paces?
Sure. So there is different levels of training. There's stuff at the basic level academy, then there is in service. I can't give you a number off the top of my head, but there is multiple days CIT, crisis intervention training that a significant amount of our officers have gone through, in addition to obviously the BHT group.
I'm sorry, can you reiterate, is his family actually here or from out of town, or do you not know?
So we do not know at this point. There is a belief that they are out of town.
The status of the officer who fired the shots?
Administrative leave.
How about the taser?
Administrative leave.
Is it just those two, because there were other people there too?
One other person's on administrative leave, so 3.
3 altogether.
Mhm.
Commissioner, can you ask a question about staffing? Because we did, we spoke to the police union,
Sure.
and there are some questions about recruitment. I do know, I just got a press release here that you're trying to step that up. But how would you characterize the staffing at this point? And going into the summer months, do you have concerns about whether or not patrols will be adequately able to handle 911 calls that come in on that great volume, usually during the
Sure.
summer, and also the promotional ranks, the lieutenants.
Yep, very good question, and reasonable, right? So where we're at with, I'll start with promotional stuff that's a little bit ahead on the timeline. We will have a promotional exam for the ranks in June. That stuff is already underway. We have to contract through a third-party vendor that we've contracted through for, I don't know, probably at least 15 years. So that process has already started. With that being said, there ends up being a release needs to be pushed out to the police department. Then they have to have time to study, sign up, and then that process starts, right? So that is now underway. We have been working with civil service to look at the overall ranks and increasing the numbers that are in the ranks, right? Starting at the initial entry officer. In a perfect world, we will have something by the end of the summer, beginning of fall. The problem with that is that's not an immediate fix for the ranks, but when you start looking at things across the board, the secondary and tertiary effects, that ends up being over time that gets backfilled. I do not have an issue, or a concern, I should say, with people answering 911 calls. You know, we've made it through, but you know, that exam, we do need a good field. We will be putting out a YouTube video in the next week, try to get candidates to start working out on their own, because that is a problem. So even in a perfect world, if we're able to push something out in September, they do not qualify for manpower if we can get them in the January class for a while. But the problems that we've seen across the country is not much of an interest in policing, right? So when these things happen and maybe there's a lot of scrutiny, makes the job sometimes a little bit less appealing. So we have to do our part by making sure that we're available, we're talking, we're creating transparency through this to be able to let people know what a good job it is and all the good things that are available, and just being prepared to take the exam.
With the new administration, can I just one last one? Just, we have a new administration, you're a new commissioner. I think this is the earliest I've ever seen a press conference about a shooting like this. How else are you going to be doing things differently in you know, when you're dealing with a police involved shooting?
Well, you know, I think that as long as we're pushing out as much information as possible, as fast as possible, that gives it a little bit more credibility, whether it's, you know, a good shooting, if you will, or something that's maybe we could have done better as an agency, right? But if people know that we're going to be as transparent as possible, good and bad, I think it helps as well.